Hello, fight fans, and welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. My guest today is a professional MMA athlete who competes in the lightweight division on the prestigious Cagewarriors promotion. His professional record is 7 wins with only 3 defeats. His amateur record was 12 wins and only 2 defeats. He is the former Akuma Pro Featherweight Champion, the Cage Legacy Pro Featherweight Champion, and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Purple Belt under the guidance of Professor Sebastian Torres, Mr. Decky Mcaleenan. Nice to meet you, my brother.
How's it going? How are you?
Did you like that introduction, brother?
Cracker.
Brother Decky, thank you so much for joining us. The first question I've got for you, my brother, is your martial arts journey. Oh, before we start that, Brother Decky, thank you for even joining us, because I know in a couple of days you're going to be competing. So, and you're going through your own, whatever it is, weight cuts. So thank you for joining us, brother. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Brother Decky, if you can share with us your martial arts journey from a young age, what sort of disciplines you got into and how you ended up where you are now.
I started my martial arts career whenever I was about 8 years old with karate. Sort of was drifting in and out of it, and didn't really have too much interest in it. And I broke my arm, which put me out of training. And then we hemmed and hawed and played about for a couple of months or a year maybe. And then it was finally, my father said to me, right, if you go back, I'll go back with you, just to try to get me back into training. And from that then, by the time I was maybe 12 or 13, I think it was 12, by the time I made it to the national karate team. And then from there, that's sort of where my fighting started. I'm driven out of a wee bit of boxing here and there just for fun. Never competed or anything. Just if someone wanted to spar or someone wanted a bit of a fight, then I'd be up for it. But the main training I done was all through karate with the national karate coach down in Dublin, a man called Derek Desmond.
Okay. And which form of karate? Was it Kyokushin or Shotokan or?
No, it was a style called Wado-Kai. But I competed at like a Kyokushin-Kai wasn't in it, but the likes of Shotokan, Wado, there's loads of different styles all competed in the one sort of World Karate Federation. So that it wasn't as much my style, it was an open kind of thing.
And how did you transition from karate go to pure mixed martial arts?
Well, whenever I started karate, it was pretty the old cotton mitts on, which is pretty much like a 4-ounce glove, and no shin guards, no protection, just your gum shield and your gloves. And as they tried to get it towards the Olympics, it started getting watered down, as you've seen with the likes of Taekwondo and stuff. And then body shields came in, bigger gloves, shin guards. And then it sort of came into like a glorified game of tag. You weren't allowed to hit each other. You had a lot of padding on, and you weren't allowed to hit each other. Where back whenever I started, you were allowed to hit, and you had frig all padding, That sort of lost interest. Just don't drifted out of it with that whenever they took the sort of fighting aspect out of it.
Sure. And then at what point did you end up going to an MMA gym, and who was it that you were training with there?
The first time I went to Japan to compete in the World Cup was I was only maybe 18, coming 19, and I was in the seniors, like in the men's, as one of the sort of favourites in it. And by the time the finals had come round, like 2 or 3 days later, you were allowed 2 per country into each weight category. And nearly every weight group had 2 Japanese in the final. Just there was that much politics and biasness in the sport that there was no real European or any fighters from anywhere other than Japan in the finals, because you're competing against someone who's got 3 of their own countrymen as a judge. They're never going to favour the others, that sort of way. So I threw the head up and said, look, I'm going to find myself a sport, which was, I was thinking about boxing more than MMA. I was going to find myself a sport that's left in my hands, whether or not, if I can stop the fight, if I can knock you unconscious or submit you, there's no need for someone's opinion whether or not that was a good punch or I won the fight. So it's up to me to stop the fight. Therefore, I've lost a couple of close decision fights. that's on me. That's 100% on me. As I said, I picked MMA because there's the most ways for me to finish a fight, and if I can't do it, then it's my fault if I've lost.
And which gym are you training under now, and who is there as the coaches?
The gyms I'm with at the minute, there's two of them. There were two separate gyms which have linked together now. It's a gym called Muay Thai. It's where my Thai boxing is. And then we have Team Torres, and that's the jiu-jitsu and MMA side of things. Whenever I was starting, a fella called Gary Fagan actually took my first ever class that I went to. Sebastian had went back to Brazil, and I'd missed him the first time he was over, and then I went out that weekend and got myself into a bit of trouble. No, Landia, sorry. I went to Gary Fagan and then I done a striking class with Yannick McGee, and then I went out that weekend, got into a bit of bar and broke my hand and my wrist and wrecked myself. So that put me out for about 6 months before the first time I'd been, and then started working with a fella in the call centre called Jerry Smith, who's actually now like one of the best men at my wedding and everything, and noticed his ears, got talking to him about what he was doing and blah, blah, blah. And then that was it. He got me started properly in the gym then.
Now, Brother Decky, your last fight was on Cagewarriors 118 against Adam Ventre. Can you share with us what you knew about Adam, what sort of game plan you had, and then talk us through the fight?
Yeah, fighting Adam was a good fight. It sort of got the buzz going again, that it was sort of everyone has seen the fight against him and Dylan Took, and Dylan had a lot of like hype behind him at that stage and everything, and Adam wiped him out the first round. Was very, very lucky. I think he just gassed the second where Took was able to get the finish. But my game plan leading into that fight, I wanted that was the fight I was going to test myself. Like, I've had, I think it's 24 or 25 fights in MMA, and like, I don't get hit. You know, I don't take a dig. I just, with the way I've sort of come up training with karate and stuff, it's sort of elusive and hard to hit me. So this was the fight as well, willing to bite my gum shield and go, because Adam's known to have a bit of power, and I wanted to test myself against him. Unfortunately, he didn't want that to happen. After I think the fight went, I think he threw 14 or 15 punches. Then during the start of the fight, and not one of them landed. Then his shot just turned to a wrestler. Then we had a grappling match pretty much. My plan was to wear him out on the feet and put him away the second round. Unfortunately, it was a wore him out in the jiu-jitsu and put him away in the second round then with a choke.
And were you happy with the way the fight ended, or would you have preferred a different ending?
I'm happy with the finish. I'm happy with the finish has been like perfect textbook style what we have been training, as in the way we took he rolled for a knee bar, took his back, controlled, trapped his leg, trapped his hand, and it was just literally one step to the next, and it was like a clean clinical finish. So I'm happy with that, and getting to show that I'm not just a striker, that I have the grappling there as well over a black belt.
Now, brother, that was your last fight. Your next fight is in a couple of days' time on Cagewarriors 120 against Kieran Lister, who's had 7 wins, 1 loss and 1 draw. And they're from, is it the Dungeon Gym they're from?
Yeah.
And tell us what you know about Kieran and what you think he brings to the fight game.
Yeah, Kieran's he's quite a good fighter. He's a very, very solid all-round MMA fighter. He has no flash or nothing really that sticks out. He's just your generic MMA type. But he's also he's very good at what he does. He's very good at the basics. So yeah, obviously you need the basics to win fights as well. He beat someone that beat me in Tom Mearns on his first fight in Cagewarriors. He beat Tom by decision, close decision, and Tom beat me by a split decision. But watching that fight, I seen a lot of holes in his game, which Joe McColgan exploited. but Joe caught him with one shot in particular, and that's not his main weakness. So there's a couple of things there for me to work on and chip away at, and I'm predicting that there's going to be a highlight reel KO.
And would you go as far as predicting which round, brother?
It'll be late in the first, early in the second.
And that's only on in a couple of days. So hopefully once that's done and dusted and it goes according to plan, we'll have you back on the podcast, my brother, to talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good.
Sure. Now, brother, has there been any coaches or mentors that have played a significant role along your martial arts journey? And if they have, who and what role did they play?
My saving grace was my karate coach, Derek. Like, he's from Dublin, I'm from the area. It's about an hour's drive, and the difference, maybe whenever the motorway was now, probably an hour and 20 minutes. And he constantly, like, whenever I went through my mad stage, whenever I was doing my teenage years, like, he was constantly on to me to try and get me back and try and get me training. No matter what I done or how much I messed up, he was still, come on, we get back and we'll don't get you back training and do this and do that. So if it wasn't for him, I doubt I'd be fighting today. Like, obviously, with my coaches now, Sebastian and Sean's just like two more fathers to me. Like, they're two men that have my back and look after me in every sense, whatever I need. Whether they've given me a place to work now, letting me work out of the gym whenever I got injured after my first pro fight, to keep my head clear. Sean let me set up the kids and teenagers striking in the gym. You know, just with them there, it's just enough to keep me on the right path, as well as Damien Rooney sort of leading the way.
It's nice to have those sort of people around you, brother, especially the first person you mentioned, where it sounds like he gave you unconditional love, you know, as a parent, regardless if you do anything good or not so good. Yeah. It was there for you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like, even as far as whenever I was able to start driving, they gave me a job and everything as a spark, just to try and keep. His plan was, if he can get me working, that means he knows where I am, so he can get me training. You know, so that was a blessing. Like, just to have someone like that. They never wanted anything in return, you know.
Now, I've spoken to a few athletes, and they all have some sort of fight day ritual. You know, it could be anything from taking a certain pillow with them to the arena, or wearing certain clothing, whatever it is. Do you have like a specific fight day ritual that you go through before you actually come out, or before you even warm up?
No, my go-to thing is, I'll find a spot in the warm-up area. You see a lot of people in the cage or out in the mats or doing whatever, trying to feel comfortable. In the warm-up area, I'll find my spot. It doesn't matter if there's hundreds of people there or there's 10 people there. You'll find me somewhere lying in a heap, just spread out, and that's me. That's me. Don't find my sort of home spot. It's something that Derek showed me years ago with the karate, because we could be going into a competition with hundreds upon hundreds of athletes, all in a big warm-up area. So the thing was, throw your bag down, you get a space and get comfortable. If someone gets in the way, kick them out of your way. You know? And that's just led to me that'll make me comfortable. If I get down and just lie down and relax, that's the only thing I really have to do.
And to zone out from all the noise that's there, you know, do you kind of just naturally zone out, or do you have certain things that you listen to that helps you keep in your own little space?
No, it sort of happens naturally, as I said, because like I was competing on an international stage from I was 12 or 13. So I'm used to like the big sort of arenas and stuff where there's crowds cheering and screaming, but you're just kind of listening for that one voice. So it did get like deafening, where you couldn't hear and you just hear the roar, and you sort of feel the sort of like the thing building inside you, but nothing good ever really comes from that. That's where you make mistakes. Whereas sometimes you can like feel the energy in the room, but clear as day, I can hear my coaches.
Well, everyone has their own little bit, don't they? Like, I remember when I used to put on shows, there'd be somebody, there was a one lad that'd come and literally he'd bring his own pillow, And he'd find. I remember once seeing him. I used to have a table in there with all the fruit and water on, and he was under the table with his pillow, had his headphones in a completely different place than there. If you know what I mean. Physically, he was there, but mentally, he was just somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I like like as I said, I like competing and like the whole thing. So I like to know where I am and just toss about, do my own thing, and then whenever I find my spot, that's where I'm gonna be. Like.
And you've got enough, competition bouts both in karate and other sports, and also in MMA, to kind of just be on autopilot now, right?
Yeah, it's like it's not a natural thing to do, but it does become natural, you know. So it is. It's starting to. It feels more and more. It feels better each time and more comfortable each time. So it does.
Now, you've had loads of fights, my brother, and out of all those fights, has there been any fight that has been the most rewarding for you? It could be some sort of adversity, some sort of weight cut that you had to overcome, or injury. Is there anything that has been most rewarding for you that you could share with us?
The most rewarding thing for me was, I think, was my last amateur fight. I took on maybe, I'd say, we'll say 3 weeks just to be sure. But I was in Japan again for the World Championships with karate, and I took a 4-man tournament. They said I'd move up in weight as an amateur, so I moved up to lightweight and fought in a 4-man tournament. And the buzz, I was the second fight, so we fought the first and second fight of the night, and then the main event. And the first fight went out, and I remember thinking to myself that, right, and I thought I knew which one of the two was going to fight. And then I was continuing to warm up and just relax and trying to get ready to go as their fight went out. Literally, the fight went out, and they came back into the change room. It was like, right, Decky, let's go. That was finished. And I remember going, oh, bollocks. Like I think he submitted the boy in 30 or 40 seconds, and it wasn't the fella I was expecting to win. So I remember going to myself, right, you have to go here. Like literally, there's no time for messing about, no time for anything. And whenever I was able to flick that switch, I managed to get the knockout in, I think it was 17 seconds. So I can remember just that having that wee switch in me that going, you need to finish this quick, and getting it done was one of the more sort of good parts of my career, like being under pressure. Because if I had to get into a 3-round war and he had just took the boy down and submitted him, I was in trouble, in the final. But then, lucky enough, I got a knockout in the first round. He got a submission. Then the final fight that night, I dropped him, took his back and choked him. So I got the submission over the grappler as well again.
There's so much learning from that fight and that experience, isn't it? Because you can have so many fights, but from that specific experience, it stays with you, doesn't it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And even fighting in a 4-man tournament, see that fighting, right, relax, you're going again now in 2 hours, it's a crazy mindset to be in, but it definitely has stood by me.
It takes you back to the UFC 1, 2, and 3 and them lot, doesn't it, brother?
That's it. Proper fighting back in the day.
Out of all the fights that you've had, brother, and you've had loads, my friend, if there are other athletes who want to take the jump from amateur to professional ranks, from your knowledge and experience, what advice would you cascade down to them?
There's a lot of, number one, don't be worrying about your social media. As an amateur fighter, you're not, as a professional, you're paid to do them kind of things. As an amateur, enjoy your process. Don't be putting the pressure on yourself. Like my amateur record, as I said, 12-2. I went professional and went 0-1. Nobody knew about the 12-2. It's gone. That doesn't matter. So as an amateur, take your time. Fight injured. Fight every weekend if you can. Whatever's safe for you to do. Go out, try and be a grappler. Go out, try out something. Try and be a striker. Try all aspects of the game, so that whenever you turn pro, if you do pick up an injury in training camp, which more than likely you will, you're going to be able to work around it or if you do pick up an injury, that you can like adapt quickly in the fight, and you'd be like, just as I said with my last amateur fight, having to like be put under pressure very quick and adjust and go straight away. If you think you're going to take 2 or 3 amateur fights and then turn pro and have no, like, everything going in your favor, it's not going to be great for you as a professional. Then you're like, you are going to pick up knocks, and then you might going to have to pull out of a fight because, say for toxic, you break your toe and you've never experienced this before. You'd think it's the end of the world and you'll not fight. But down to like my style of fighting and growing up, you pick up an injury in the first fight and you got to fight more rounds that day. You just sort of adapt and overcome, and lucky that sort of stays with you. So just enjoy the process. Don't be worrying about your amateur record, and go and fight the top boys and try and learn and get your experience, and then turn pro.
Decky, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. I want to wish you good luck on your fight in a couple of days with Kieran Lister, and hopefully I look forward to having you on another podcast in the near future, my friend.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. Thank you.